Hey guys, it's Titus. Welcome back to the MVM Show. Glad you could join us. And hey, I want to ask you guys a favor. I do this probably once a year. This is the episode I do it in. Help us out, hook a brother up, and if you can, check out. If you listen on Spotify, please go on there and just give us a 5-star if you can. Just haven't asked for that in a while, and it's just kind of hung in there. If I'm not kind of saying something about it, it's not never really moves. It moves onesie twosie, but when I say it in an episode, people definitely get in there and just, hey, it's easy. Like right now, if I'm on Spotify and I got some other podcasts that I listen to, but if you click on it and you listen in Spotify, you can click on the show that you listen to, which MVM Show, of course, and then right up there you can see our thumbnail, I guess, says MVM Show Titus Headings, if you're following it or not. And then right down below following, below the description, is a little kind of circular box, I guess. And it says 172 ratings. It says a 4.9. So if you can go in there, you tap on that, and then it lets you rate the show between 1 to 5. If you've already done it, obviously it's not going to let you do anything, but if you haven't, please go in there. If you listen on Apple Podcast, you can go in there, go to your library, click on the show that you listen to, and then on there, you got to scroll down through some of the episodes a little bit, and then you can tap to rate, and you can write a review. So you can rate it and review it. So we're pretty good there, but it hasn't moved a lot just because, I haven't pushed for a lot. So I know the big thing for a while was the YouTube MVM Show channel, and you helped us hit 1,000. I think we're getting close to 1,100, or maybe we're over 1,100 now. I haven't looked in a while, but anyways, you can also check that out and subscribe to it if you want to watch it on video. So, but yeah, my big thing today is if you can just take the time, you enjoy the content, go on there, Apple Podcast or Spotify, and rate it and review it however you want to do it. I really appreciate that, and helps the show get pushed out there. I'm going to start, this is the time of year where I go from like one a week, probably like during January, I kind of slow down to one a week or one every couple weeks. And then this time of year, I get to where I'm doing for sure one every week, if not 2 a week. So I'm going to start ramping up the episodes. I just had a great guest on. If you've not heard of him, you will listen to him on Monday. I've thrown this extra episode in this week on a Thursday because I missed Monday. No, I did have an episode. I had it with Hero to the Line, which was a great episode. Go check that out. But I didn't have one last week, so I was trying to put out 2 this week to catch back up and keep the content rolling. But Barton Ramsey comes on from Southern Oak Kennels on the next episode, and man, we had a great conversation, hour-long podcast, and I guess I'll let the cat out of the bag. I am going to be getting my next lab from Southern Oak Kennels. I already know exactly what stud that I want to get a pup from. Kind of going to start the relationship rolling with Barton. We've talked a few times on the phone. He comes on the podcast. He's definitely going to probably do 2 or 3 more episodes this year. And I actually, if I can, I'm going to try and make a trip out there this year. And you say, man, what about Rocky? Hey, trust me, don't worry about Rocky. Rocky's still got I'd say at least 4 solid seasons left on him. He is 5.5. He'll be 6 in November, and he'll turn 6. And I know, it's kind of like a 9-year-old, 10's like pushing it. And even then, it's got to be really weather specific. And it's really sad to think about that, honestly. I really don't like thinking about that. And I had some friends that lost some dogs this year that were pretty young. One was 6 and one was 7, and it's a heartbreaker. And I don't even want to think about that. But that being said, I also never want to go without a gun dog, a hunt dog, duck dog again, ever. Like, I do not want no gap of time where I got to wait to train another one up. I want my next one ready to roll. So, believe it or not, it's that time to be looking. And I was talking to Barton about it, and he's like, yeah, usually people are getting there between when they turn 6 and when the dog turns 7. Right in that gap is when they actually pick up another pup. So by the time that one's trained up and your other dog, meaning your dog you have now is between 6 and 7, your pup is ready to go when your other one's basically slowing down or not hunting much anymore. So It's gonna be I never seen myself having 2 labs. I'm not how much. I'm sure I'm looking forward to that. The dog food bill going up, another crate, and just all kinds of things. But I'm excited about it. Really excited, and it's gonna be different just because of the level. Excuse me, level of the dog that I'll be getting. So I am excited about that, but I don't like. On the other side, I don't like thinking about Rocky retiring too, because that was my first dog, first trained dog I trained, and you guys all love him and know him, and he's made anything that I have what it is because he's there. People ain't there for us, obviously, and that's fine. I'm glad they're there for Rocky. So, anyways, I might dig into that a little bit deeper later on in another episode, but I want to get right into why I had this episode today. I've been wanting to do this one for a while, and I want to do it on prep for out-of-state duck hunting. I know there's several that have reached out to me and asked opinions and thoughts and what do you do in this situation, and I really want to make this, and I don't think this will be the only one because I'll probably have Thomas on too. Thomas always picks up a lot of this. Wherever I leave the slack, he picks it up and always comes in with stuff I never thought of. I mean, I'm just one person at one angle, so, but don't worry if you think I left something out. I'm not, because we're going to do more. If you want to throw some stuff, like say in YouTube, if you watch on there, the show, you can put it in the comments, stuff maybe that I didn't say in this one. Not that I don't want to talk about it or don't plan on talking about it, but I got certain things I'm going to cover in this one. And if you have something I maybe left out that I just didn't mention, say it and we'll cover it in the next one. So let's get started. Prep for out-of-state duck hunting. So this is, you obviously, there's going to be some people that for their whole life are just completely fine with hunting their club their whole life or hunting public refuges in their state, wherever that may be on their public land. But then there's some of you guys that you want to get outside, or I encourage you, if you really have never planned on or thought of going out of state. It doesn't have to be across the country. It can be in your state next door. I highly encourage it because as a waterfowler, I was up early this morning rolling on episodes, getting stuff done. But I highly encourage you to do it and push yourself, because sometimes it is a push. You got to force yourself to do that. Just as far down as, let me backstep here a little bit. Some people will never leave their area, period, in their home state. They just will not venture out. And that's totally fine too, because when you venture out, your success ratio does go down at first. And if time is of the essence and you can only hunt 8 to 10 to 12 times a year, I totally get that. I understand it. I was the same way. But once I was able to, obviously financially and obviously time-wise, be able to venture out more, job dependent, which the job I have right now does allow that, gives me time off during the week to hunt more, then I do encourage you to do it, because once you dial in these other places, and you make the sacrifices of not maybe, shooting your birds that you want, over time you will, because you're going to have more aces in the hole, so to speak, of like, okay, the weather's dead here. I can drive 4 hours north or 4 hours south or 4 hours east or west, hit the weather, hit the migration. I can chase it even in my state. If you live on the north side of the state and maybe the birds push through, hey, I got spots down south that I can hit, that I know kind of from the scouting reports or from friends that there's birds down there right now. So it can definitely give you a lot more success in the season. And it can just give you a lot more adventure in your life and more excitement. I mean, we're always looking for that and chasing that anyways as duck hunters. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on 4 things. I'm going to talk about costs. I'm going to talk about decoys, which that's really a short one, clothing, and then go into scouting and things I do and have learned over, I don't know, maybe only, I guess, for sure 4 years that I've been going out of state. I don't think it's been 5. I think it's about been 4. So I got a long ways to go, but I have learned a lot. And maybe to save you guys some of the heartache, I'll go share some of those with you. So anyways, so cost. Obviously, the biggest thing nowadays, even in states that always have had cheaper fuel, even your fuel's higher. So you want to count the cost before you go on a trip, obviously. Can I afford this? Can I do this? How can I make it most cost effective? And fuel being the first thing. You got to take a vehicle to get there, or maybe you're going to fly there. That's a whole nother can of worms I'm not even going to open right now. But you're talking, if you fly somewhere, you're talking about flying with your clothes, flying with your gun, paying for your baggage. You're talking about dealing with flying with the gun, which is not too bad. You're talking about getting a rental car or having someone pick you up. And then you're talking about all these other things. So anyways, that's a whole nother can of worms I won't open right now. But fuel. So fuel, you got the fuel. You got the food. When I'm hunting hard and somewhere I've not been, I'm probably going to be in the field longer than I am at the room. If I'm going somewhere where I've had success, I've got some good pins for onyx or spots, I might limit out in 2 or 3 hours and then be back at the room or eating breakfast at 11 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, and then chilling out in the afternoon. But let me tell you this, when you're duck hunting, you always have that allurement of, man, I'm going to limit out. I'm going to go to breakfast, and then I'm going to sleep the rest of the afternoon, get caught up in sleep. Just kick that to the side. On a trip, unless you're different from me, just don't plan on getting rest. Don't plan on thinking, man, I'm just going to catch up this afternoon, because what ends up happening is if you want to stay successful the day 2, you got to go scout that afternoon. So unless you just got a spot that's so hot, you could hit it for, 2 or 3 days. Okay. I'm actually not bored on this topic, contrary to my yawning. I think I live on 4 hours of sleep, so I apologize. I just can't help it. I'm actually really pumped about this conversation because I think I could definitely save some people some heartache, some money, and some time. So, you got the fuel, you got the food. Again, so where I was going with that is food-wise, usually so say if we drive up in the morning and we got a long drive, we're not going to get there till that night. It depends on what time we get there, and if we already have a spot for the morning that we had from prior experience. Usually, if we're not there too late, we'll go ahead and go to the store. We'll eat fast food or go to a restaurant. Usually not a restaurant. We'll usually hit fast food that evening for dinner. And then we'll go to the grocery store and pick up just things like maybe some milk and cereal, something to get you going in the morning, some coffee. I got to have my creamer, some Keurig cups or whatever for coffee, and then a few snacks, some drinks. Honestly, when we go on trips, we don't really cook at the place, which always sounds like an amazing idea. We always say we're going to cook steaks, some rosemary, some butter, and we're going to mash potatoes. But honestly, you're usually so beat, it just never works out that way. One of these days, we're going to do that. Me and Jake, a friend of mine, they've been starting to go out of state too. We swear up and down we're going to do that next season. So I think we will, because there's nothing like home cooked food, honestly. I'd rather eat that any day of the week than eat out, but it's just for time saving purposes. But if you're trying to go the cheap route, obviously you want to do that. We'll buy like peanut butter and jelly or something, some bread, maybe have that or some sandwich stuff. Thomas would be smirking at me right now if he heard me saying that, because I really don't. Probably buy like, what are those called? Crustables. I just do quick, easy stuff. A lot of trail mix. Got to get your Mountain Dew, your waters, and then just whatever, I don't know, whatever I'm in the mood for. But I'll do that. We do that the night before. And then that night when we get back to the room, I'll pack, I'll throw it in my dry bag. I'll throw in like a couple bags of trail, like small bags of trail mix, throw in water, throw in some couple dews. And then, I may or may not throw a Crustable in or something like that, or I don't know, some donuts or whatever. Nothing crazy, because your hopes are always that you don't got to spend all day out there. And usually, even if we're not doing that good, we won't really stay. I mean, if there's birds not flying, I'm not sitting out there till 1 o'clock, because we have done that. And sometimes that pays off because the flight's in the afternoon. But if it's a spot we've had success before, we're not going to do that because we know, like, well, we better go look elsewhere and see where the birds are at right now. So you need to kind of get out of there. If there's no action, if birds are trickling in and it's 10 o'clock and you've got 2 guys and the limit's 7 each and you're at 9 birds, we're staying. And we'll just stay until it completely dies, and then we'll do our afternoon scouting. But we're never usually sitting out there all day. We've sat out there all day on places where we've seen thousands of birds, and we get there in the morning, and all morning long there ain't a single bird there. And we're like, well, it's an afternoon spot. And maybe run back into town, grab something, and come right back, and then stay out there till dark, and then find out whether, it was an afternoon shoot place or the birds are gone, And it's great when they come back in the afternoon, but there's times they don't. So your food, you just got to play that by ear. But that's usually what we do for food. Now for lodging, that's all part of the cost. I'm going to go somewhere with that here in just a minute, in a little bit. But I'm not going to dive into how we attack that. But I was just going over cost. So lodging, lodging, you can stay in some ghetto, like, rat, cockroach infested places, and you could probably, I've seen numbers for like $50 a night. I'm the kind of guy, I don't want to pull the sheets back or the blanket back and see look like a grizzly bear slept in there because of all the hairs, if you know what I'm saying. Like, I've had that happen trying to save money. It's like, it's not worth it for me. Like, I'll just take a sleeping bag, which you could do this. You could save money on the lodging. That way you have a shower. So you can get the cheap place, the $50 place a night. Just don't lay your bear skin in the blankets because it ain't clean, which makes you wonder where else it's not clean. You can take a sleeping bag, lay on top of that, and at least you got a nice comforter. You got a warm room, and you got a shower, somewhere you can brush your teeth. So there is that option. Or you can do this also. Now, the problem is with duck hunting, if you go, the best time of duck hunting is cool or colder. So depending where you're at, you could camp out. And sometimes we do that in the early part of duck season where it's still warmer and not too cool. We'll camp out in we've done it in Thomas's truck or my truck. Slept there. If we can, have a campfire. It's actually really fun. We've done that a few times, and that's actually a blast because I love camping. And sometimes, a lot of places, you don't have to pay for the campground or wherever you're staying. You might just be staying on BLM land or public land that you don't got to pay nothing. That's obviously the cheapest route. And if it's not too, -5 degrees, you can do that. So cost-wise, you can go from camping out, which means you might have to buy a little more groceries because maybe you're going to make food there, to the ghetto, cockroach-ridden hotel, to a nice hotel, which may cost you, $100 to $140 a night, but you can sleep in the sheets and you can walk around barefooted in your room, to Airbnb. So we'll get into the Airbnb concept here. This necessarily isn't where I'm going to give you some great tips, which I think that may have already helped some people, but the real money tips are down here in a minute. So decoys, let's jump from cost to decoys. That's not a long topic. That'll take me 1 minute to talk about. But if you know where you're going, you should know kind of, at least if you don't research what kind of birds are in that area. And use Google for that. Google it. Look what area you're going. Refuges in this area. Wildlife, bird refuges, or however you want to type that in Google. You're smart enough. Type it in there. See what kind of waterfowl is in your area. If it's a heavily goose area, if it's a heavy mallard area, or if it's a heavy diver area, know that stuff before you go in. If you don't, you can't find out, take everything. And I've done that. We filled up a trailer with all of our decoys and taken everything because we just didn't fully know. And that is a safe route. If you don't have room for that, that could be a problem. But if you do have the room for it, take everything and then play it by ear. But I like to do the research and kind of see what's there first. If it's a heavy mallard area, then we're just rolling with, 5 dozen mallards and maybe a dozen pintails or something like that. It's not, if it ends up being more than that and different birds than just mallards, it's not going to kill you to have mallard decoys, Maybe in a diver situation, but even then, I don't think so. So decoys are decoys, believe it or not. I'm kind of under the impression it doesn't have to be. It's nice. If I have the option, I'm taking what I have, but it's not the end of the world. You don't need to run down to Sportsman's when you're out of state and you're already spending money to go buy 2 or 3 dozen other variety of ducks or something because you don't have it. Okay, that's that for decoys. For clothing, so again, you don't really want to take the whole kitchen sink if you don't have to, but it depends on what kind of gear you got. I really like the layering concept. That's obviously it doesn't have nothing to do with Sitka or Kuiu, but in anything, you obviously want to have maybe your t-shirt, then your long sleeve that's thinner, then your maybe a thicker long sleeve with a hood, and then a hoodie, and then a jacket, and then your waterproof jacket. So those are layers. You got your wader. You can take things from like guys wearing shorts underneath their waders to thin, long, thin, but like pants or pajama pants or bottoms or whatever, then to thick, like depending on how cold you're going to go, as thick as you can get, because you're going to be in some cold environments. So, and then that depends too if you're wearing insulated waders that you don't need to do that with, but you want to be prepared. I think we all know there's nothing worse than realizing you did not bring warm enough stuff. So you kind of want to be that. I would say you want to err on the side of caution when it comes to clothing, but you don't need to bring 4 jackets, 4 hoodies, 4 long, you know what I mean? You can if you want, but you just if you do that layering concept, you're gonna be set. Because if it's warm, you can shed stuff. If it's cold, you can put more on. Being in a boat, I do have one of those goofy looking hats with the flaps and all that, and it can kind of be funny sometimes, but funny looking. But I promise you, it ain't funny when it's 20 degrees outside and you're in the boat and you got basically a 30-mile-an-hour wind chill. There ain't enough you can put on. I mean, that's at that point you want the neck gaiter, you want the face shield, you want the warm hat, you want the goggles for your eyes so they don't tear up and freeze on the side of your face. You want the good jacket. Maybe you won't wear the jacket when you're hunting, but for that boat ride, you're going to wear it. Now, if you're walking in, and that's a whole other. See, I start cold walking in because if you're carrying decoys on your back and you've got 2 dozen decoys on your back and you got your dry bag with your gear in it, and then you got your gun on you, and then maybe your dog stand or whatever you're carrying for that if you have a dog, I mean, you are going to get warm fast, not even in 5 minutes. And that was one thing I learned in the military. The drill sergeants, we'd go on a ruck march, and they would not allow us to wear a jacket. They would not allow us to wear anything because they knew we'd get soaking wet carrying those 80-pound packs within, 15 minutes. I mean, it don't take no time. So I suggest start cold, not where you're shivering and shaking so bad, but like you're like, ooh, I could put another layer on right now, because I promise you, put that in your bag, keep it dry. You don't want to get soaking wet with sweat because then you're just going to make yourself colder. So start cold, throw your jacket or your hoodie in, layer down to that point where you're just like, this is a little too chilly for me. Throw that in, don't put that on, throw it in your bag, start hiking, and in 10 minutes you'll be so glad you did, because your body heat's going to rise big time. Then when you get to the spot, you unload everything, take everything off, you're starting to throw decoys out. Throw your decoys out too, because you stay warm doing that. But about that time, once you start tossing your decoys out, you're about halfway through with that. You're like, okay, I can feel the cool breeze now. You can go throw that jacket on. So now you're not sweating. Now you put your extra layer on and you're perfect. But man, if you get soaking wet and you stop halfway, like, oh man, I got to get this stuff off. You're yanking stuff off of you. It's too late. It's too late, because as soon as you pull that off, you feel better for a minute, but then you cool down too fast. Then you're wet. Your under layers are wet, and then you're just in a bad place. So saying all that about clothing, before you go somewhere, I suggest get it in a good weather app. My favorite one, it's not really an app. It's a website, and it's a government website. It's NOAA. So NOAA. So November Oscar Alpha Alpha dot. Well, shoot, I was about to say .com. I think it's .org because it is a government website. Let me double check. Yeah, gov. So NOAA.gov, and you go into their weather section. There's an unbelievable amount of stuff you can find on there, but just go to their weather section, and you could type in the city and the state. And then in that, because I use this all the time for flying and stuff, but in that, you can go see graphs. You can see radar. You can see wind directions and speeds. And it's the most accurate I personally have ever seen. That's what I like. And you can see the 10-day forecast there, the highs and the lows. So wherever place you're going, look that stuff up, because that's where you can go and see, like, oh, man, okay, it's going to be 75 during the day this early season when we go, but it cools down fast at night. It's usually 40s in the morning or whatever. Then you know how to base your clothing from there and what you need to pack. Again, if you're smart, and I know all of you are, just take that extra little bit of gear just in case, because weather can change in some places quicker than others. But just use that weather app for that. I also use WeatherBug, which there's nothing special about that, except why I like WeatherBug. Weather is pretty accurate on it. You can add anywhere in and look anywhere you want. But what I like it for is not really the 10-day or the hourly or the maps, but I do like it for the radar. Right below the temperature, you can click on the radar and you can see radar's radar. Okay, so they have the future radar, and you can see where rain or snow is coming from. If it's not over you yet, or if it's on you and you're waiting for it to break up, you'll see about, give or take, within 5 to 15 minutes of when it's going to break up or when you're going to get doused with a big storm of water. So I really do like their radar. I don't know why. Maybe just I've used it for so long. And in their layers, you can turn on different things. You can turn on future radar, storm tracker, visible satellite, infrared satellite, regular satellite. You can see severe storm risk, all that stuff. So I don't know. That's just, there's other apps. I downloaded some. I didn't like them. So that was my go-to for radar. Other than that, yeah, that's what I do for weather apps, but use those to kind of base your clothing off of. All right, lastly, here's the big thing. So for scouting, Onyx is a huge thing. What I do when we go to a place, and this is prep for out-of-state duck hunting, a place that I've never been to, I will take a certain colored pin in Onyx, and I will just run on Onyx. So I'm going to open it up right now. I can't remember what colored pin. Season's been over for a little bit, but I have a specific colored pin. I do the premium just because I do travel, so it has all the states in it. You can do just your state, and it is cheaper. But okay. Like, so for instance, spots I want to go to or have in mind, I do a black X. So like, okay, I've never been there. It looks like a good area. It looks kind of ducky because my hunt layer on my maps, I use let's see, which one is it? The hybrid 2D. They have 3D too, a map. But there's a reason I don't use that all the time. Let me see. Because number one, it takes longer to load. I bounce between 3D and just the regular, the 2D. 3D is when I find a spot and it looks really good, and then I want to get more detailed view. That's when I'll go to 3D. But just for loading purposes, and if you don't have good service, it's just too hard to load. I'll stay in the 2D, and I'll stay in the satellite because there's a hybrid and the topo. So topo's like seeing elevations and stuff, which I use that once in a while, but mainly I stay on satellite. You can do hybrid as well, which will give you street names, road names, freeways, all that stuff, which I do hang out on hybrid a lot. But anyways, I will put black X's on spots I want to check out. I haven't yet, maybe, but I do want to check out. That's what I put the black X's on. The red I have red stuff in my phone, and that will have a duck in it, a symbol, because I've hunted it and I've killed birds there. Or because if I don't have it pinned and I've been there, or let me think how I'm trying to say this. So if I've hunted this area, say if it's a reservoir or something, and I got pins with birds there, I've seen birds there, I've killed birds there, more than likely. Or I know it's a good spot. So maybe I'll still, even though maybe I haven't hunted it, I'm leaving the pin there. If there ain't no pin there and I've hunted the area, it's because I haven't seen no birds there, or I had one there and it was no good, and I deleted the pin. I don't just leave a million pins in my phone. So that's how I'll do a spot I haven't been to. I will make a bunch of pins, and then when we go scouting, we'll hit all those. And usually we'll find stuff scouting for those spots. Like, man, that pin was dumb. But I couldn't see it in person, so I didn't know. So basically, I pin it with the black pin. I go in there with the black X, and I look at it. I'm like, oh, this ain't even doable. Like, this isn't even a spot I would want. I delete it right then and there, and I move on. And on my way to the next one, I'm like, oh, man, look at that spot. And this is the pointer I'm going to give you. This is kind of a cheat code that I'm giving you right now. But this one's, I'm going to give you a real obvious one, and I'm going to give you one that you probably didn't think of before, unless you've had it happen to you. But let's say you're running down a river. Let's just say you're in a boat, okay? And you, all of a sudden, you're running the edge line of the bank or whatever, and you went to your black X, you're like, there ain't nothing there, and you keep going. All of a sudden, you see, guess what? A blind. Maybe it's actual made blind where they made it kind of really nice and covered up, and it was almost kind of hard to see, but you were close enough to the shoreline, you've seen a blind there, then go there, you can check that out, as long as you're not on private property or stealing someone's spot, which a lot of places like that aren't, you're not. Everybody and their grandma uses it. Just be careful, because if it's, depending on what time of day you're on, there might be people hunting. You don't want to, you want to have some etiquette. You don't want to be running the river at 9 a.m, really, like that. Just got to be careful. I'm not saying you can't do it. Just be careful, because there might be guys hunting and you can't see them until you get real close, and then all of a sudden you see their decoys. You're like, whoops, those guys are ticked off at you. But so I don't really do my scouting at hunt times. I just don't do it. Just for etiquette purposes. So you'll see a blind and it's real nice and built up, or there's just a bunch of sticks and you could tell, like, okay, someone's hunted here. Now, the next thing is maybe there is no blind, and you're kind of, maybe you walking on the bank, or you're just slowly kind of putting along on the edge and you're looking. Look for spent shells. That is probably the best thing I could tell you. It sounds obvious, but maybe you haven't thought about it before, because you see those spent shells and you see a pile, which it's ridiculous that you see that, honestly. We got to pick up for ourselves. I am not advocating that. In fact, think about this for a second. If those guys would have did their due diligence, and if that's their little hotspot, whoever hunts that, there may be 3, 4, 5 groups that hunt that sporadically. If they were smart and they found a money spot, they would have been picking their shells up. Not just for littering purposes. You got to pick your shells up. Please pick your shells up. But for the secondary purpose of, now people see that, and if they've been there, done that, like me, I know, oh, this is a good spot. And guess what? I'm changing my black X pin over to probably a red X or a red duck pin on my phone. That's just the reality of it, because these are fresh shells here. This must be a good spot the birds like to come to, whether it's the morning or afternoon. So if you want to save your spot, pick your shells up. If you're too lazy to pick your shells up, then don't cry when other people are hunting there when you show up. So that is a trick, and maybe some people can take that any way they want, but that's how I roll, and I don't feel a bit guilty for that. That has nothing, in my opinion, to do with etiquette. You just did scouting and you stumbled onto it. That don't happen very often, but it does happen. So, and that's just for waterfowl. I do different colored pins for different hunting. Like if it's turkey spots, if it's parking spots, I may use like a turquoise pin. If it's boat ramps, I use like a purple pin, so I know where launches are at. I got a lot of black X's still that I haven't touched. Turkey stuff. Actually, I got yellow X's on here too, and I can't remember why. I don't know if I switched over to try to start using yellow X's. I think is actually what I did. So like a yellow X, so it sticks out to me like, oh, these are spots you want to check out. But anyways, the spin shell thing was a big thing that I wanted to tell you guys, and then blinds made along the side. Now, if you're on a refuge or you're on public land that you're hunting, that's all walk-in stuff, it's the same thing. It really is the same thing with the spent shells. Unfortunately, like I said, people doing that is wrong. Shouldn't do that. I mean, it's trash. Spent shells is trash. Like, just don't do it. It's pack it in, pack it out, you know. We want to keep places nice, and we want to keep it open to our hunting. We got to take care of it. I mean, that's just the big deal. I know there's times you can't get every single shell. It depends on what you're hunting when you shoot. You might not be able to. Maybe you miss a couple. I don't know if they fall in brush and you don't see it. But please, let's do our best to do that. So for scouting, I've already talked about Onyx. Google Earth. I like looking at Google Earth on the computer, but I really don't like doing it on my phone. And you can if you need to. But like, this is the prep that I'm doing to go on an out-of-state duck hunt. I'm looking at this in advance. So I'll find stuff. Onyx is great. It's good. But if I really want to get a detailed look at it, I will go on Google Earth. And if I got good service, which I usually don't even try to unless I do, then you're like, wow. I mean, you can see everything. I mean, you can really get a good idea of the topography, the layout, just details that you'll get on there that you might not get on Onyx. So that's definitely a big thing I used. I should have said this first, but I'm gonna really hyphenate this. Is read the regulations, procedures for whatever state you're going to. Guys, you're gonna think you cannot go without studying hard on the regulations. You just can't do it enough. You're just not gonna be able to. You do it hard and put your effort into finding everything out about the regulations for wherever you're going, not just for bird numbers and what they allow, what the limit is, how many you can shoot of each variety. Don't assume it's the same as your state or your area, because you could be in the same state and say you could shoot 5 honkers here, but in this area you could shoot 1 honker, or you can't shoot any at all. So regs is massive. I know I called this prep for out-of-state duck hunting, but let's just say I may change the title and say prep for out-of-area duck hunting, or out of your, I don't know how I'll word that, but because this does apply and can apply to all your situations. So like I said, like the regs, just for the birds, what's your limit? Is it 5, 6, or 7? How many can you shoot how many redheads can you shoot? Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it none? Honkers or mallards. I can shoot 5 mallards, and 2 bonus ducks, or 1 bonus duck, or I can shoot, 7 Drake mallards, maybe 2 hens. So 5 drakes and 2 hens, whatever. Just, you got to know that stuff. That's a given. But the other thing I was wanting to bring out is you got to pay attention to the regs on, like let's just say for river, maybe you can't hunt that. Like Onyx, don't put your full reliance on Onyx, please, because there'll be times, and I know Onyx is always trying to update things and regs and rules change, but there's times where, man, it looks like on Onyx, like this is, yeah, we can hunt this. This is totally public. But then you go on the state's regulations and you look at that area and that stretch of river and like, oh shoot, that's not, you can't hunt that. Or that shoreline from here to here, you're not allowed to do, but you can on this side. Or you got to be so many feet from this or this, there's so many different things, and you just really, really got to be careful. You got to be cognizant of it. Do your due diligence, pay attention, read. And I've done this before. Call a game warden. Call Fish and game. Talk to someone there that knows those things and clear it up before you. If you have any questions, any doubt at all, do it. Don't go and ask later, because that ain't going to turn out well for you. You're going to either get a ticket or go to jail, one of the two, and none of us want to lose our hunting privileges, or that'd be a nightmare. I honestly can't even fathom if my gun, I couldn't hunt for a year. I would just destroy me. So just do your due diligence. Look at the regs, look at the bird numbers, how many you're allowed to take. Look at where you can hunt, what's closed zone. Refuges will have a lot of closed zone or sanctuaries for birds. Do not get caught up and hunting a sanctuary on accident. Some places have sanctuaries and they have a hunting pond next to it, but they say you cannot retrieve. You can only go in this area to retrieve. So they'll have signs that maybe make 100-yard buffer between that and the sanctuary or the closed zone just for bird retrieval. Because if you shoot something and it falls in there, it's fine, but you cannot hunt in that area. You cannot shoot birds standing in that zone. So just got to know it. We're not perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to oh man. And if you got a good game warden and it's not obvious, they're going to cut you some slack or say, yeah, no, you can't do that. Because I guaranteed, promise you, other hunters will turn you in. And a lot of times it's really for your own good, to be honest with you, because you could get yourself into deeper trouble if people aren't, us as hunters aren't watching out for each other. So, lastly, I feel like there's more I could say about regs than there probably is going to be later, but I'll just end with that right there. I'm already going a little bit longer than I wanted to. Lastly, for this episode, the first trip. So your first trip that you take out of state or out of town, because it's too far to come back home to, I highly suggest your first time, unless you're just going to camp, is to get a hotel. Because for one night, if you're on a 4-day trip, hold on. For one night, because you may have a big range of area that you're going to hunt, and maybe it's like 50-mile nautical, 50, no, I'm thinking airplane terms. You got a 50-mile radius of area that you're going to be hunting. So if possible, if you only rent one night of hotel, and man, there ain't no birds in this area, but you drove north 40 miles and you found the X, then good, your stuff's with you. You already packed up your clothes that morning when you were leaving. It is a pain. I know, just you got to get up even a little earlier to get everything loaded back in your truck, but I'd rather be, instead of driving 40 minutes or 45 minutes every morning to the X because you stayed back here and already booked a hotel for 3 nights, you can move to that area and you've got a 5-10 minute drive. So it really just gives you more advantage because you can still get up early. I'm not saying necessarily it's always just about getting more sleep, but it can be. And it also can be less wear and tear on your vehicle. So I highly suggest your first trip to an area that you're not unsure of, stay in a hotel at night. And then if that's somewhere that you come back to consistently, then you can look into doing an Airbnb. So now you're like, oh, I've been there. This place is great this time of year. We already heard that there's birds there. Boom, lock down an Airbnb. Because in the long run, I feel like they're cheaper and they're more convenient. You can wash clothes. Almost all of them have washer and dryers. They'll be in the area that you want them to be in. There's more room. Usually they'll have a driveway or just a big area to park your truck, your trailer, your boat, whatever it is that you're taking with you, or a couple buddies that have their vehicles. Your stuff's more secure because it's out of the house instead of a hotel. You don't have to take everything inside every time, depending on where you're staying, if it's out in the country. It's just, there's a lot of little things about it that I feel like an Airbnb is better. If we're out in the country, we can leave all our decoys in our boat, which we kind of do anyways, but it always makes me a little nervous when you're in town. But if you're out in the country at Airbnb, it's no worry. And you can pre-pack more stuff in your vehicle the night before and less to do in the morning in those situations, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think the second trip and beyond, an Airbnb is a great idea because you have all those options. You have multiple rooms. excuse me, you have a kitchen, you have a living room, you can watch movies or whatever you want in the evening. If you got somewhere to hang out, you got a kitchen. They'll always usually have Keurigs. You got a couple showers, you got your own room. It's super convenient, and really it's not anymore. It's about the same. Airbnb has went up in the last couple years. It was cheaper 2 years ago. Now they're throwing all these hidden fees in. There's another place you can do. If someone wants to put it in the comments, you can on YouTube. But there is another place that's not as old as Airbnb, but it looks like they're not hitting you with all these hidden fees like Airbnb is starting to try to do. So I don't know. I say that, then another time if you book out early enough, you're going to get that good deal. It's when you kind of wait too long. I would highly suggest booking out with an Airbnb, as far as you can. If it's 2 months, a month is already starting to get down to the wire where like those good ones are gone already in the area. Because if you do it like 2 weeks before, you're still not going to find something. But you're like, man, there ain't that good of stuff here in this area. Well, do something. If you know you're going to go somewhere, you don't have to book it, but like 4 months in advance, look at that area. You'll be surprised how many places there are, even in some remote areas, that are available because it's so early. But you get a month out, you won't even see those show up because they're not available for your dates anyway. So definitely the earlier the better for Airbnbs. And then look, there's some other companies that do that might charge a little less right now because they're newer. So anyways, that's where I was going to end this episode. Hopefully that helped guys that are thinking about doing that, whether it's 4 hours from your house or whether it really doesn't matter at that point. A 4-hour distant trip is basically the same as going 16. It just costs you more, but it's the same concept. You got to have lodging, you got to have food, you got to pay for fuel, you got to be ready, you got to scout, you got to do all these other things. So anyways, that is that episode. Thanks for listening in, and give some feedback if you want. And YouTube, don't forget to go on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and rate and review however you can do on there. Let's bring those numbers up, guys. Let's start. I really appreciate it if you start just jacking those numbers up and start seeing the ratings just go sky high. So anyways, appreciate it, and we'll see you guys on the next one.